So if you've even heard of New Zealand, you'll know that it's quite isolated from the rest of the world. And I've grown up here my whole life, and I've skated here for most of my life as well. And in that time, I have heard plenty of talk about how much better different parts of the world are for skating, specifically the US. Now, I've been lucky enough to have the chance to actually go skate in the US multiple times in different parts of it, as well as the opportunity to talk to a bunch of skaters from around the world. So in this video, I wanted to go through 7 things that are different about being a skater in New Zealand versus the rest of the world. It's also worth noting that there's a good chance that this is just my experience. You know, things can change from town to town, city to city, let alone country to country. Even in America as well, I've only skated in 2 places there. There's a lot of places in America, you know, and there's also a lot of places in the world that I've never been. So this could be fully ignorant, but it's just my experience, you know. So one thing I was told a lot during my skating life was that the skate parks in New Zealand suck and they don't stand up to like a world standard. Like if you go to a different country, you can have a much better skate park to skate. But my travels have taught me that this is not a New Zealand specific thing. The whole world is plagued with terribly built skate parks. The first place I ever skated in the US was in Maine. And the skate parks in Maine, they are skatable, but they are definitely on par with the average shitty skate park in New Zealand. Super rough, very weirdly designed obstacles, and definitely a challenge to skate. And I think these kind of skate parks do make the best skaters. They really bring out the kind of creativity in you and also push you to skate better. You know, so they're not really a bad thing. But one thing I do think is very different between the New Zealand and the US is that we have a lot more skate parks closer together. Now, obviously, this is going to vary depending on where you are in the US and even where you are in New Zealand. But since New Zealand is so much smaller, we're a lot more compact. Cities are like usually maybe at most 2 hours apart. It means you have a lot of good skate park options around you within like an hour drive. Like myself here, I have at least 5 that I can get to, even on public transport at this point. And a lot of them are brand new, so I'm pretty lucky for that. And I definitely know some cities that are like the size of New Zealand in America have probably similar options for skate parks. But when I was in America, man, there was no options for skate parks, man. Where I was staying, it was where I'm at, I get that, but these skate parks were like 3 hours apart. I'd drive 3 hours to get there, horrible traffic, and it's just a really dog shit park that was not worth the travel most of the time. The second big difference between us is New Zealand has super mild weather. This was a huge thing I noticed going to America. If you live in New Zealand, you probably don't realize that's the case, because I definitely didn't, man. We have hot days here, we have cold days here, but they just are not on the scale of the rest of the world. Like I'm telling you, I went to go skate in LA. We went there in like spring before summer, and that shit was so hot. I don't know how the hell anyone can go outside during the day. Aircon was so needed. And just exercising at all, it was just so unbelievably tiring. You had to drink water so much more. Very, very hard. And also the extreme opposite of that when I was in Maine, where I went there in winter, and it's the coldest cold I've ever experienced in my life, where you physically can't go outside. You will freeze to death, kind of shit. New Zealand, it never gets like that. It never snows here, you know, it never gets that cold. And it never gets that hot either. Like, generally, where I live here, the hottest it gets is like 25 degrees Celsius, you know. There were some 30 degrees days, and those days feel hot to me because I'm used to them now. But on the scale of the world, that is so mild. And our winters, we don't get snowed out, we don't get a harsh cold winter. Instead though, it's definitely not better in some ways, because we definitely get rained out, you know. The New Zealand rainforest, right? We get rained on a lot, and I think the New Zealand winters do kill off a lot of skaters. So though it might not be as like deadly cold and you might not get snow, it is definitely wet enough to stop you from skating for half a year sometimes. But when we have those good winters where it barely ever rains, like it's like raining once a week or something, like that's where I realized New Zealand's so good for skating. It's like so mild. The weather's never too cold, never too hot, you know. The third big difference is the fact that we just don't have like any indoor skate parks. And like I mentioned, we have very wet winters sometimes, which cuts off a lot of the rollerblading population or the skating population. You know, you have one bad winter where it rains every weekend. That's a bunch of people that might not want to skate anymore, you know. And you'd think they'd bring a big market for an indoor skate park, but almost no one has got it to work yet. We have one great option called Sunskate, which is up. It's run by Rollerblade, which is dope. Definitely check it out if you're in New Zealand. It's in Auckland too, so that's where most people come to New Zealand. So it'd be a good time. Go pop over there and check it out. I skated one indoor skate park and it was right airfield. It's gone now, which I'm so gutted about, which kind of shows that we're probably pretty similar at this point, where there's no indoor skate parks despite the need for them, you know. There's definitely way more options in America for indoor skate parks, and they seem to survive a bit better. But it's a shame, yeah. Opening an indoor skate park seems kind of impossible this day and age. A good point I forgot to mention though is usually these skate parks can't be skateboard only, because there isn't enough skateboarders, let alone rollerbladers. So there's one benefit, you know. There's almost no skateboard only skate parks. I think there actually is none. But I know it's somewhat common in America to find skateboard only skate parks, which is so lame, man. But anyway, moving on to number 4 though. This one I think is such a big quote, but this was something I was told so much as a young skater, and that's the fact that in America, handrails are lower. So there's some kind of safety standard, I'll look into it while I'm editing this video, but that requires handrails to be a certain height here in New Zealand on steps, and that height is just way too high to skate. Most of the time it's like above hip height, you know, which is safe if you're falling down the stairs. But if you want to skate that rail, it now has to be steep if you have the legs to jump on it. And even if you miss, like getting nutted on it, falling on it at all is so much worse. And of course, all us New Zealanders are watching these skate parts, pausing it and looking at the height of the rails and these skate edits and being like, what the hell, this rail's like knee high, you know, a handrail that's knee high. Like we don't have that shit in the skate park. And I believe this built an impression that handrails in America are all like that. But man, I went to go skate in America, and I'll tell you that it's the same problem as here, man. You go to a spot that looks amazing on camera, and that shit is so hard to skate, and it is not an ideal size. Now there are some like fluke, really good size handrails in America that are amazing, that are perfect height, you know, super safe, fun, and amazing. But it's definitely not the standard, you know. It's just a bigger place with more luck, you know. And there are some great spots here in New Zealand too, but I just think because we're so much smaller, there's a lot less options. They're definitely less common. And sadly, any new spots that are built now are going to be all way too hard to skate, making them way scarier if they're not capped in the first place. And this is a side note, but that does make me worry about the future of street skating, you know. What if this happens everywhere in the world? There might be no more like proper skateboard handrails, you know. They might all be built capped, or they'll all be built too high. I guess you just got to up the game, right? You got to skate higher handrails and get more smoked when you fall. Now, number 5 is probably the most obvious one, and that is that there's just a whole lot less bladers. Like, if you think you have no one to skate with where you're at, think of that in New Zealand where the population is like 10% of where you're at, you know. I did a poll to compare this to you guys, and it seems like most people are like me, though, where most rollerbladers are solo skaters, which is kind of sad. We need to link up, guys. But yeah, I mostly skate by myself at this point, although I do have a somewhat small crew I can hit up around here. But my crew, my whole skating life has been at most like 3 people, including me, you know. Regular skaters, 3 people, that's it, you know. And then at our skate events here, man, our skate events max out at like 30 people, I swear. Like, that's a crazy turnout for an event. And, you know, sometimes I see some people's like regular Tuesday sessions meetups where they have like the same kind of turnout as our like national skate comp, you know. And it makes me pretty jealous, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, I definitely love a solo session, man. Some days I just need to go out there and drill out a trick. And it's a different vibe when you're skating with someone, you know, and you got to wait on them or something. Although I love those sessions too. They usually go harder. But, you know, there's definitely room for both. And number 6 kind of is directly related to number 5. But that is the fact that it's impossible to get skates here in New Zealand. So ever since I started rollerblading, I have not been able to buy skates in the country. Every so often one would show up in a skate shop, but it would be like super out of date. Like at the time, it would be like a Rossi's M12, the OG one. And it would be so overpriced. The shit would be like $800, which is crazy. So I had to rely on getting some second-hand ones or getting them from overseas. I definitely have had people tell me in the US that it's hard for them. Like, they don't have a local skate shop they can just drive to either. But it's a whole nother level of hard when you have to import them. You know, you have to spend hundreds of dollars on shipping. But luckily, things have kind of changed recently, and this is a great time for me to bring this up because this is one of the biggest questions you get asked: how do I get skates in New Zealand? Well, we have a good skate shop called Shred City Skates, run by a great dude named Calvin, great skater, based in New Plymouth. And he stocks a bunch of aggressive skates. If you have something in your size, I definitely recommend getting it from him. You know, you can save on the shipping. You have the kind of blanket of like, if something goes wrong, like sizing and stuff, it's easy to return. And I know Calvin, he's a great dude. He's literally just doing this to help blading. It's not like he's going to make any money out of this. It's such a small niche here in New Zealand. So definitely check them out if you're looking for skates. If you can't find it there though, my 2 advices are: 1, go to This Is Soul Skate Shop because they have free international shipping, which is absolutely wild. Like, that is crazy, man. Or Loco's been my go-to as well. They're just really good, really quick shipping, really affordable too. Great all around. And then for the last one, number 7, was the one that like annoyed me the most when I was in America. And that's the fact that there are literally written out laws that are anti-skating. Now, they are specifically skateboarding. I don't think they literally say rollerblading, which kind of is lame. Would be pretty hard if it did. But I think it is absolutely mental and criminal that there are like laws that stop people skateboarding. That is absolutely disgusting and so not free for the land of the free, you know. This is something I noticed in a lot of places. There are no skating signs, which are obviously everywhere in the world, but these no skating signs say that you can be like fined like a few $100s if a cop catches you, which is the big difference between here. Like here, there's no skating signs. You're going to get kicked out. Maybe you get trespassed, but you're not going to get like you're not going to get fined by a policeman for skating in a spot one time. Like, the rule they're going to get you on isn't going to be specifically about skateboarding or rollerblading. It's going to be like trespassing or vandalism or something a bit more vague. The fact that it's written out as skateboarding, as like there's a specific one for skateboarding, like some old fuck put a law together to target skateboarding, I think is absolutely crazy and shit and criminal. Now, I know a lot of these laws are they're just deterrents, and people usually don't get hit with them, you know? Like, when we were skating in San Fran, there's a famous spot that has this up on the wall that a lot of people skate all the time. A cop walked past and told us he'd fine us if we skate there. We didn't get to skate it, which absolutely sucked. And when I mentioned that, there's some locals saying like, oh, we've literally never been fined, never been kicked out of that spot, which just shows, you know, these laws aren't upheld and they're just there to put you off. But I still think it's absolutely criminal and crazy that they exist. I went to check my local city if they have any like similar laws, and they don't. It's like vaguely similar, but it's nowhere near the same kind of thing. To me, having a law that forbids you from skateboarding where you can get fined for that's like having a law against like walking on the footpath, against like driving. It's a law against like doing some kind of art, like painting. It's just, that seems so backwards and not free, you know? And honestly, I'd love to know how they came about, you know, like who was behind these anti-skating laws. It's got to be some old grandma, right? Some old grandpa. It's got to be, right? And that's the big standout struggles of being a New Zealand rollerblader that I could think of. If you have any I missed, please let me know. And also share anything that sucks about where you skate or what's extra good about where you're at. I'd love to know the differences. Because now if I look back on my 7 things that came up there, the idea was to find negative things, but a lot of these are kind of positive. Except for the not being able to get skates thing. That absolutely sucks, man. There's no positive to that. I spent a good chunk of my life thinking how shit it is to be a skater based in New Zealand. There's kind of like, we're just missing out on a lot of cool things. And we are missing out on some things in a way, but it is also so cool to be a New Zealand skater. You know, there's so many benefits here. And not to say that it isn't absolutely amazing to skate in America, because the times I got, my street skating time in America was like some of the best times of my life, man. I had so much fun there. The spots are amazing. I did some of the best skating I did ever. It's just such a good vibe, so like different. And I absolutely love it. And it's a great place to go skate. And if you have the opportunity to do, and you're lucky enough like me, I definitely would recommend it. Although that's kind of impossible these days, but you know. But anyway, that's it. I want to give a massive thank you to my patrons for helping me make this video. Consider getting one of the new Blade News hats if you want to support me. But more than anything, I hope you go for a skate today and go land something new. You're going to do it. Hit the street today. I dare you to hit the street today. Peace out, guys.